class. Today we're going to be talking about the Bill of Rights, the United States Constitution. We're going to start off by talking about the basis of why we have a Constitution and what the Founding Fathers intended to do here. Of course, we know from our earlier discussions that the setting is that King George from England had been persecuting them both religiously and in the form of taxation, and they were facing imprisonment for debt. And so the people set forth to put together a constitution. Who remembers the preamble that we covered the other day to the Constitution?
I do.
Jessica, can you recite that for us?
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution to the United States of America.
Excellent, excellent. And then, of course, the Constitution itself establishes the structure of our government in three branches. Who remembers what those three branches are? Haley?
The judicial, the legislative, and the executive.
Exactly. There you go. Very good, very good. And it also establishes a system of power control between the branches so that none of them can just basically take all authority. You remember what that system is called? Do any of you remember? Yes.
System of checks and balances.
System of checks and balances. Very good. And what we're going to look at today is something that limits the power of the government, which we know of as the Bill of Rights. It's the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the United States. And so what we're going to do is first we're going to discuss these amendments and what they cover, what rights they protect for the people. The First Amendment covers several different topics and different rights. It protects our freedom to express ideas through speech and the press. So freedom of speech and freedom of the press are both covered and protected by the First Amendment. The press meaning the ability to print news and opinions, books, things like that, according to what you believe, and the government can't tell you that you can't do that. Also included within that First Amendment is the right to assemble or gather with a group to protest for other reasons. So right now in our country, we've seen a lot of protests and we have seen demonstrations. This protects our right to peaceably assemble to protest, and that is an important right that they did not have back in those days, and they felt that that should be an absolute right for all citizens to be able to come together and voice their opinions about things.
When the First Amendment guarantees the right of free speech, does that mean like social media posts and stuff like that as well? Could that be included?
That's a good question, Amanda, and that has been determined as a free speech area for the common days. Of course, back in 1770s and 1780s, they didn't have any idea what Facebook would be like or Twitter or anything like that.
It might change the lines.
But it protects all of those rights, absolutely. And it also, included in those protests, is the right to demand that the government fix problems. It also protects another very important right, and that is to religious beliefs. It does not demand that you have religious beliefs. It does not demand that you have the government can't demand that you follow a particular religion. It prevents the government from creating or establishing any kind of favoritism towards one religion. That was important because as people came to America for freedom, they came with all kinds of different religious backgrounds, and they just wanted to be free to worship and believe the way that they wanted. The Second Amendment protects the rights of the people to keep and bear arms. That was very important for the Revolutionary War because many of those who were called up came with the firearms that they owned to be able to protect their freedoms and to be able to protect themselves from tyranny. So the Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms, which is important because that's how sometimes you might have to protect the rest of your rights. The Third Amendment doesn't seem to us in the modern day to be such an important thing, but it prevents the government from forcing homeowners to allow soldiers to use their homes. The British used to commandeer people's houses, and they would put their troops in there, and you would have to just deal with the fact that they would be in your house and eating your food and dealing with whatever they might do. The Fourth Amendment bars the government from unreasonable search and seizure of an individual or their private property. That's why if you ever watch CSI or any of these things and they talk about having a warrant, they have to have a warrant to come in and search your property or search your car or search anything else, unless they have a reasonable belief that you have something right there that they can see that is illegal. The Fifth Amendment has a lot to do with people accused of crimes. In those days in England, it was not uncommon for people to be imprisoned on just one person's accusation and left there. And prisons were horrible places to be. Disease, there were rats everywhere, the food was horrible. And so the Fifth Amendment established some rights for people who were accused of a crime. First of all, it states that any serious criminal charge has to be started by a grand jury. A grand jury is a group of people who come together and look at the facts so far in a case and say, yes, we think there is a legitimate case here to charge somebody with a crime. A person can't be tried twice for the same offense. That's called double jeopardy. You may have watched Jeopardy. This isn't the same thing. It means that if you have been tried of, say, assault for beating up on somebody and they found you not guilty, you can't be charged again for that same crime again. So you're protected against double jeopardy. And you can't have property taken away from you without just compensation. You also have the right against self-incrimination. And what that means is you can't be made to give testimony against yourself. Have you ever heard somebody, when they're arrested, what do they tell them? Plead the fifth. But what do they have to do when they arrest you? Mirandize. And what does that mean?
Reading their rights.
It means you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. All of that stems from a Supreme Court case about the Fifth Amendment. And you cannot be put in prison without due process of laws. It means that there has to be a process that you have to be put through before you can be put in prison. Did you have a question on that?
The double jeopardy, is that like it has to be the same crime in the same circumstances? So like if you got tried for like, I don't know, murder and then you were found not guilty, but then a different murder, you could still be tried with, right?
You could still be tried with that. It means that if you are tried for the murder of Jessica, for example, and you're found not guilty, they can't take you back and try you again for Jessica's murder. Now, if you murdered Haley too, that's a different matter. They could try you for that and find you guilty. So that's something to keep in mind. So the Fifth Amendment covers a lot of criminal activities. The Sixth Amendment also has to do with people accused of crimes. The Sixth Amendment guarantees you a right to a speedy and public trial, and that trial has to be by an impartial jury. That means that they can't go and find, the government can't go and find 10 people that don't like you and have them all come testify against you. They can't come and take all of the victims' families in a case and say, hey, we want you to come and testify. You have the right to have 12 people who know nothing about you, nothing about the case, to listen to only the facts of the case, so that the facts of the case have to add up, not just the opinion of the people. And you have to be advised of any criminal charges against you. Witnesses have to face the accused, and the accused allowed his or her own witnesses. And importantly, included in those Miranda rights, is you have the right to be represented by a lawyer. Now, the Seventh Amendment extends, it's funny because it only extends one individual right, but it extends the right to a jury trial to civil cases. Criminal cases you're used to, somebody does something to somebody, somebody steals something, something like that, somebody breaks a law. This is if the federal government is suing you for property or money, then you have the right to a jury trial in those cases as well. The Eighth Amendment is important because it bars two things: excessive bail and fines. You know what bail is? Anybody know what is it?
Sorry. Where you can like lessen your time if you pay a certain amount of money in jail.
Not exactly, Amanda.
Bail is a system set up so that way if you are arrested, you can pay a bail that lets you out temporarily before your trial.
Okay.
And some people get bail, some people don't. Depends on like the severity of the crime, and they're likely to reoffend and a bunch of other stuff.
Very good, very good. And excessive bail and fines, which means that if you get a traffic ticket out here on the highway out here in front of us, you can't be charged $100,000 for a speeding ticket. It has to be a reasonable fine, okay? And the other thing that it protects us against is cruel and unusual punishment. Back in the days of the beginning of the United States, in England and many countries around the world, there were various forms of torture used. They were used to get confessions out of people. They were used to get people to change their religious beliefs, things like that. And the United States Constitution bars any type of cruel and unusual punishments. And that has been used to avoid or to stop all types of different treatment in our prisons, and it has been used as a grounds to challenge death penalty laws as well. It's very relevant to today. The Ninth Amendment says that just by listing these rights in the Constitution doesn't mean that you don't have other rights. There are many things. Amanda mentioned before social media. Well, they didn't have any idea what social media was, or the internet, or computers, or the use of electricity, or anything like that in those days. But they left this open so that if it was not a right specifically given to the government, it belonged to the states or the people, the individual people, all of us here. So it means that you don't lack other rights that aren't spelled out in here.
Is this, does this operate like as proof that the Constitution and our rights were supposed to be like a living document that was constantly in flux?
Very good, very good. It has changed. Understandings have changed. Applications have changed over time. So yes, it has definitely been adaptable to mean many things. Our Supreme Court rulings, man, the books go back on all kind of decisions where they've decided what does this mean in the modern times for those days. Finally, the 10th Amendment says that the federal government only has these powers that are delegated in the Constitution. If their power, if a power is not listed here, that power, that right, belongs to the states or the people. And then state constitutions determine what belongs to the states and what belongs to the people. All right, so now what I want you to do is take a few moments and I want you to look at one of these rights and think about which one of these means the most to you and why it means that. And before we get into, you're going to write a paragraph about that, but before you do that, I want you just to talk amongst yourselves and tell me which one of these rights are important to you, the most important to you. So go ahead, talk to each other.
Which one? Okay.
Because of the whole George Floyd, the recent events with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, they were just very aggressive, and a lot of the punishment was unnecessary.
So then you would punishment, and they didn't have like all of the other rights as well.
I think the Second Amendment is important because you should have the right to protect yourself and all of your rights. And if you need, to protect yourself, then you have the evidence to like set forth that.
I think the first one is the most important one, 'cause I think like ability to speech applies not just to like the things you say, but also like the thought, because that kind of is a part of it. And the press is how we get information, and to assemble to protest, it's how we guarantee our rights and try to get news.
Right. So now what I want you to do is each of you to turn over that page that I gave you that says the Bill of Rights. What does it say? Turn that over and write for me a brief paragraph about the right that you have chosen, the amendment that you have chosen, and tell me what it is about that that makes it important to you. I also want you to explain how, if you lost that right, how do you see that affecting your life today? All right? So I'm going to give you about 10 or 15 minutes to write those out. When you're done, just look up, let me know that you're done, and then you're going to present those to your classmates.
Can I have a new pen, please? That's some stuff, right? Thank you.
take about one more minute to finish up what you are on. Doesn't have to be elaborate, just a basic description of which one you chose, why it's important, and what it would mean to you if you lost it. Whenever you're done, just lift your head so I know you're done. Okay, you almost done? Okay. Jessica, why don't you stand up and tell us which one that you, which amendment you chose and why?
I chose the Eighth Amendment. Based off of this year's events with the unjust deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I chose the Eighth Amendment as the most important to me. As an example, at the arrest of George Floyd, he was laid on his stomach and held down with a knee to his neck. I see this as both cruel and unusual due to the fact that Floyd was not resisting. If this right was lost to me, I believe that many more lives could be unjustly lost.
Very good, very good. Okay, Amanda?
The right to speech, press, and assembly are the front line preserving democracy in our free republic. Just as the Second Amendment gives us the right to protect our rights with force, the First Amendment acts as a stockade, so that way we hopefully don't have to use force. Speech represents our freedom to thought and belief, and the press is both a means of distributing information, as well as it keeps the government in check because it means people actually know what's going on. And the government has acted in ways that hurt people, like Watergate and other such things that prove that press is necessary. And the protest is our way to create reform in ways that do not necessarily incite violence. So it operates as an expression of the public will. Without these freedoms, I believe that there could be a genuine descent into tyranny because it means the government doesn't have true knowledge of both the public will, but also means the public cannot act in a way to protect itself and others.
Very good, very well said. Okay. All right, Haley? Which amendment did you choose?
I chose the Second Amendment
Okay.
because it is important because you need to be allowed to protect yourself and your rights. You can use this amendment to set forth the evidence to protect yourself and your rights. You can defend yourself. It wouldn't be good to lose this because if you lost it, then you could get yourself really hurt, I guess.
Okay. All right. The thing is, it's your opinion. I'm asking for your opinion, something. So, very good, very well said, all three of you. All right. Now, what we're going to do to close out class, what I want you to do is I want each one of you to select another right in the bill that it goes to, the amendment that it goes to, and on your way out, just write on the bottom of your pages. Don't turn them over and cheat. Yeah, don't turn them over. Okay, turn them over. On the bottom, just write one of the other amendments by number and at least one of the rights that it preserves. Yeah. Okay, let's see if you were paying attention now. And as you finish them, you can just step up here, hand me your paper, and you're free to go.